It's time. It's time for you to live better.
It's time for you to feel healthier.
It's time for you to live longer.
It's time for you to enjoy your journey.
It's time for you to understand your body and your mind. Thank you so much for joining us on It's Time today. We are your hosts. I'm Linsly Donnelly, your citizen scientist and your longevity expert for midlife women.
And I'm Dr. Jen Wagner, physician and holistic performance expert. Welcome to It's Time, powered by Prosper. Just a quick reminder, the information discussed in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. We are not offering medical advice, nor are we entering into any type of physician or clinician relationship with listeners. Always consult your healthcare provider before beginning any new fitness, nutrition, or lifestyle changes to ensure they're right for you. Your health and safety is our priority, and let's keep it that way. Thank you.
Okay, this is so fun to be sitting next to the fireplace with you. It's cozy.
We're having a cold day here.
Yes.
It's so nice just to be it's just been a quiet, kind of reflective type of day for me, which is unusual.
Yes, it's kind of a gray day, cozy, quiet. Well, we are coming together here to talk about, because we're in the season of gratitude right now. So we're going to talk in this episode about gratitude, but we were thinking we might want to ground it in what has become our fifth pillar, right?
Yeah. So when we were reviewing stuff, we felt like something was just missing.
Yep.
And with so much work on ourselves and even community, there's just something larger that we're all a part of. And so trying to figure out how to describe that, we've spent a lot of time.
Yes, but just as a refresher, because I think we'll start each episode with this just to keep us kind of grounded in what are we going to explore and go deep in. Move is number one.
Mm-hmm. Sleep, number two.
Nourish, number three.
Mm-hmm. Our mindset
and community, number four. Mm-hmm. And then this new one, we've been struggling to come up with what's the right word, but what we're going to go with is beyond. Mm-hmm. Beyond. It's the fifth pillar. And what was starting this conversation with us was this idea of, especially midlife women, there's a lot of work that we do around purpose and meaning and why. And a lot of that for people gets centered in this idea of being connected with something bigger than yourself. And just even bigger than your family or maybe bigger than your community. And there are a lot of words that people use and frameworks and ways that resonates.
Yeah. Yep. And I agree. And I think that it also just helps you to reset your day-to-day feelings, almost that, when you think about how large this universe, however you want to describe that term is, that maybe what we think is such a big deal is not such a big deal when we put it in the perspective that there is something beyond.
Yes. Yeah. And so we played with a lot of terms, right? Spirituality, that lands right on spot for some people, and other people, it feels too lightweight. Religion, which is where a lot of people find this connection to beyond, but for some folks, that's not the framework that is really authentic. We get a lot of this sense of the beyond on the mountain, right? Like we're hiking and running and skiing and snowboarding. So that's the sense of wonder, the sense maybe of awe.
Yep.
So wherever it lands, for you, there's a framework that feels like your authentic way to interpret this sense of there's more than just me in this equation. And as we move through midlife and we go into our high half, that seems to be taking a bigger and bigger role.
Absolutely.
We talk a lot about the work with Arthur Brooks. Yep. And strength by strength. That's one of his key pillars that he describes as what's important later in life.
Right. And I think when we also describe this phase of life as really being able to access a greater sense of empathy than what we've ever had before. It's very scientifically proven that midlife women, especially after menopause, have more empathy than any other demographic. And so I think that this correlates with that is when we appreciate that there is something beyond.
Yes. So we're going to call this fifth pillar beyond. And we might be the only people who call it, we might be the only ones that even call it that. It might be beyond anybody else, but we're calling it the beyond.
Yeah. I think I do want to just give a shout out to our dear friend, Reverend Sue, who kind of first introduced me to that word, even with her 3B principles. And hopefully we'll get Reverend Sue here to talk to all of you, because she's one of the most amazing people I know. But just really challenged me with that word. And to take that perspective for a little bit. And all of a sudden your problems it's not that they're not there.
Yes.
It's not that they're not important, but it just helps you regulate a little bit.
should just kind of put the scale in place. Well, so in that pillar of the beyond world, we're talking today about gratitude.
Yeah.
And I think this is a term that fortunately has gotten a lot of play in the last 18 months. Bookstores have gratitude journals. There's even elementary schools, there's gratitude practice. And so it's a word that's gotten a lot of awareness. And it's a word that's important to keep top of mind, even though it gets used a lot, because there's some amazing science about the benefits of a real deep, practical gratitude practice in your day-to-day. So the context we always come from is what's easy, what's quick, what's doable, that will help you live better now and for the long haul.
Right. And I think that, you have done so much work in this space. And I think that the cool thing is you're going to ground it all back into science for me. I think, again, because, this is on the soft side.
Yeah.
So some people, especially some of really type A, hard driving people, this is hard to access at times. Or even if it's not hard to access, it's hard to fully believe that it leads to the benefits that have actually been proven.
Yes. And I think you and I both fall in that camp. And so one of the reasons why I embarked on the whole citizen scientist journey is that I need the data. If I'm going to do something, especially with my time that I show up for every day, I have to feel like it's grounded in something that's, reflective around there's benefit that has been quantitatively associated with it for me to then go build my own anecdotal data.
Absolutely.
And so gratitude is one of these things that you can kind of just get it as a concept, but the science behind it can be so compelling. So if we think about the why, like why bother doing it, the research that has been teed up behind gratitude attacks health, health and fitness. So people who have a gratitude practice have a 2 to 3 times higher overall health and health span longevity than people who don't. So, that's kind of a hard thing to go do the research behind, right? But what they pull together demographic sets and try to do the surveying on what are you doing in your day-to-day. The ones who have a gratitude practice have the higher health benefit. It's also tied to financial returns, which is interesting.
Super interesting.
Super interesting. So, if you just want to be financially motivated, it's a good idea to have gratitude. No surprise, but having gratitude in your relationships, it correlates to higher, more positive relationships. And I think that's obvious in friendship, right? And probably obvious in partners, maybe harder in parenting. I think that's a tougher domain where we kind of fall into parent, troubleshoot, operations, logistics, course correct. Yeah, not as much into gratitude. I'm grateful. And then I think some of the other areas that are, not a big surprise is just the actual lifespan that when they try to correlate, when they get into that happiness factor and what connects to long lifespan, gratitude is an input into the happiness equation that is an input into longevity.
I also think in the workplace,
yes,
I think that we at times, and probably at times rightfully so, treat work as a chore.
Yes,
too, and that most of us have worked really hard to do what we do and to get where we've gotten. And I think that incorporating gratitude there reminds us that we chose this, we worked hard for this, we should celebrate and enjoy that we're here. And that doesn't mean it's great all the time, just like any other aspect of life. I do think even sometimes just sitting there thinking, wow, I'm really grateful to be here. I'm grateful what this provides.
Definitely.
And it ripples.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
As you were describing that, it reminded me, are you noticing in the last couple of years, like I used to hear the expression all the time, I appreciate that. And now it's become, I appreciate you, which is, I think, a beautiful thing. But at the beginning, I was like, was that a typo? Did you misspeak? But bringing that core sentiment of, actually, I appreciate you as a human because you're in my space, you're doing something with me and helping uplift me or helping me finish a job, or even if you're giving me critique, you're trying to help me get better. So there's like that in that relationship at work is again and again part of the gratitude.
And I love that you brought that up. I feel like the first couple of times that was said to me, I agree. I was like,
yeah, I know. Yeah.
I'm just so not used to hearing that type of phrase.
Yeah,
I guess. And yet it was really meaningful.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think it takes like success out of it. Like, it's not like you did a great job. It's like, I actually just appreciate you.
Yes.
Not what you're doing. So I love that.
And I think that's a hard thing, is right? Because we're very much outcome, output oriented. So it is a nice spot to land, like just for being. So that's some of the science.
Yeah. So when you say gratitude practice,
yes,
let's get into the nitty gritty. Like,
Yes.
what is a gratitude?
Yes.
Because I feel like that could be very vast.
Yes. Yes. So if we come at it again with a filter of biggest bang for the buck. So, I mean, some people actually really enjoy gratitude. Like, when we do, there's a great test out there it's free. It's called the VIA character strengths test. And we'll talk about this in one of our upcoming episodes, but it's a whole test about what is your natural wiring around 26 character traits. And the work has been done on maybe, I think it's up to 7 million people now. And it was done out of the Positive Psychology Institute. And the underlying reason for doing it is each human has a different set of wiring around these 26 traits. And the top 5 are what you naturally value. So, for example, gratitude is one of those traits. Honesty is one of those traits. Humor is a trait. And the reason why it's interesting to do for yourself is just to understand that you authentically thrive when you're using those traits and when you're connecting on those traits. It's helpful in relationships if you understand people's traits are different. Like, one of my dear friends, her number one trait is external beauty is important to her. So aesthetics matter. So I'm not going to have a meeting with her when my house is messy because it's going to be chafing her in her background, right?
Interesting.
So that's the context for it. And gratitude is generally one of the traits that people enjoy doing. So if you enjoy doing gratitude, you don't really need to practice. You're just out there rocking in it. But if you're picking it up because you're like, okay, I feel like maybe I need discipline around this, there are 3 ways to think about implementing a practice. One is the time of day. Related to that is the frequency. And then the third is the mechanics of how. Is it spoken? Is it written? So just for fun, like, I think you probably have a gratitude practice of some sort, right? Just
developing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it wasn't there for a long time. Again, like, these things are this is an area, this beyond area. These, I don't want to call them soft skills because they're not soft skills, but these very more theoretic things that are not tangible and technical.
Yeah.
So I'm working on my gratitude practice, but it still takes me, I have to think about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not natural yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. We teach manners like please and thank you, but it's part of it, that the actual practice of it. So on the first one, on the win, there's a lot of the science that says if you do this first thing in the morning and last thing at night, it helps program your whole day with a positive energy. So there are, I think BJ Fogg has a great book called Tiny Habits, Tiny Little Habits, Tiny Habits, I think. And his number one wake up routine is just to open your eyes and say, it's going to be a great day. Thank you. And that's a gratitude practice right there. Or Mel Robbins got such awareness for the 5-second habit, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, up, and then thank you for the day. Or Oprah, thank you for the day. So lots of people start their day, even before they open their eyes, saying, thank you for the day. I have a different way of doing it in the morning. I'll get to that in a second. But the idea is in the morning, kick it off somehow. And then in the evening, recounting the things you're most grateful for. And that actually is the one practice that has the most amount of science behind it, is end of day, pick 3 things that you're grateful for.
Right. And to kind of integrate things, it does improve your sleep.
Oh yeah. There we go.
Improve your quality of sleep, which I think is super cool. I agree. I love the idea. And we talk a lot about when we're out teaching about starting your day that way.
Yeah.
It just really does reframe your mind. If you can, before you pick up your phone, before you on the computer, before you have to make kids lunches or take care of the dog or whatever complicates your morning routine before you get to start your day, if you can just say, I'm actually grateful to be here. And sometimes I have to remind myself, I am grateful for these animals and these children and
the chaos. Yes.
Then it really does shift. Like when the kids start fighting, like I'm in a different mindset.
Yeah.
So like that is probably the practice I'm trying to do the most, is say, in first thing in the morning.
Yep.
Is I open my eyes, I go to get out of bed. Oh, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I pick 2 or 3 things
Yes.
to say I'm really grateful for, and then go. You don't even have to say it. You can put it in your mind.
It's in your head.
It's the most practice thing ever, right? It takes 2 seconds.
Yes.
But it's just doing it.
Yes. Yes. That's awesome. So a little bit then of the how, because if at each of those equations, like in the morning or at night, there are ways to do it, right? You could think it. There is so much science behind the handwritten part of it. So if you have time to write it down, even just jotting it on a sticky note. My morning practice has become, I do morning meditation and then I sit and I write gratitude, like 3 things in the morning and 3 things at night, so that I physically write. There also is great science behind doing it physically. So the tactic there, if you're more of a mover, would be, you close your eyes and you say, I'm grateful for, you could squeeze your hands together, your palms, to feel, I'm grateful for the chaos that is my life right now. I'm grateful for having a car to go drive the kids to school. I'm grateful the heater worked, or whatever you need to pick. And to squeeze your hands physically or to kind of press on the floor, it gives your brain some sort of a kicker to embed it. And that's kind of a cool way to embody the physicality of it.
And I think that writing is really important. And even if nobody ever reads it, but it's kind of the same feeling you get when you get a thank you note these days.
Yes, which are so rare.
So yes. I got a thank you note from a common friend today. And I was like, wow, just, it's just the thought that someone else took the time to think about you, to write something down.
Yes.
It's that process. And so if you think how good that makes you feel, you can do that to yourself for like day in and day out. And it really is super powerful. And I think I love that physicality. Our friend Rachel Vickery, she is a breathwork and arousal state expert, but she really works on breathing for 24 hours a day, not just breathing when you're stressed, but she does give you a get out of jail free card, which is 3 or 4 slow, deep breaths while looking at the horizon and thinking one gratitude thought.
Okay.
It really does activate the parasympathetic nervous system, helps to really calm you down. And that's why it's so helpful in the evening as well, because it does activate that limb of your autonomic nervous system. And so I love that, these are skills that you can take everywhere with you.
Mm-hmm.
You need to walk, and it's reframing. I talked to my athlete daughter who is a runner. She's so nervous on the start line sometimes, right? We have a couple of kids that play individual sports. And I said, it's the same neurochemicals that are fear as excitement.
Yes.
And so I was like, be thankful. I was like, what if you just reframed those feelings and took a moment of gratitude? I am thankful that my body can do this. I am thankful I get this opportunity.
Yeah.
We can use it before we go and do public speaking.
Yes. Yeah.
Just that moment of gratitude can really reframe things, kind of help your brain say, yes, sometimes this sensation is nervousness, but sometimes it's excitement and I'm ready, and it's engagement and it means I'm really ready to go. So gratitude.
Yes. So those are some cool, hows, right? So the physicality, the morning, the night, short and sweet, 2-3 times, squeezing hands, stepping on feet. The other thing that it can show up for in a very explicit how-to is in the relationships. So if you've got a coworker or your partner or your kids, we haven't had a chance to go deep yet on the idea of the Losado ratio. We've talked about it as from Barbara Fredrickson's work and the positivity mindset ratio, 3-to-1, 3 positives for any 1 negative. The same thing shows up in the gratitude research. So if you think about in the course of your day, I'm trying to create a better energy with whoever, fill in the blank. Having the idea of gratitude in that relationship is one of the levers you can pull, one of the things in your hip pocket to bring just a better vibration to that relationship. So if it's a stressful relationship with a coworker, it might even be as basic as squeezing your hands and saying, I am grateful for what this is testing in my thought process. I am grateful that working with this person is generating an income for me. And I am grateful that once we're out of this meeting, I'm going to be able to shake my body and shake it off. I mean, because that could be a really authentic way to have gratitude in a negative dynamic, right? It doesn't have to be like a forced fake gratitude.
I think it's so important. And I'm so glad you said that because I think that's what people think sometimes.
Yes.
Like, this is phone.
Right.
I'm really not thankful for any of this that's going on right now. But there usually is a reason that we're there in those situations, right? And so I think that that's huge. And I really do like the physicality. We've talked about this in different places, just ways to bring yourself back to the present.
Yeah.
I think adding that physical sensation really helps to say, okay, this is where I'm here now, and listen to myself. Like, don't be distracted.
Yeah.
That's a really cool
thing. I think the way it shows up in a positive relationship, and I'm not sure that our kids, if they listen to this podcast, are going to be like, Mom, I don't think I've noticed that. But I've certainly been trying, y'all, is to remember to be thankful for the things that they do instead of being just commenting on the things that need addressing. And your job as a parent is all sorts of things. It's so much easier to default in the, have you done this yet? And so working on starting with, thank you so much for at least in most of our dynamics, it is an authentic way to bring gratitude to a dynamic, which can be more chaotic and
absolutely. And
tricky.
I think the more we practice it, the easier that becomes. So like when we practice it with ourselves, it's then much easier to say, before I launch into, you need to do this, this, and this.
Yes.
Thank you for doing this. And I agree with you. It changes the dynamic. And when I remember to do it, which is not all the time,
but you do. But yes, we're trying. We're works in process. Yes,
I agree with you. It changes the dynamic. It de-escalates. I think that's the other thing. It can really help de-escalate a situation. And I try to really consciously focus on it when I know I'm getting fired up about something, to say, okay, let's take a beat. Let's remember that we're thankful for parts, or find something to be thankful for in this situation, reframe it so I don't fly off the handle and can have a calmer approach.
Well, and so the reason why we thought of this episode, obviously, is because we're right now going to be in a season of Thanksgiving, and we realize that people might be listening to this, and it's July, so they don't. It's not necessarily around Thanksgiving that we need to have gratitude, although it's a lot easier, right? Because there's all these little tools. Like in our house right now, we have this gratitude tree that it's kind of like the Advent calendar or something. You can sort of put something on it every day. It's a gratitude tree. The fun of that is that you go back and look at what's happened for 10 years and what were you grateful for. So that's what the tactic can also be in a gratitude journal, as you flip back and you're like, what was I thinking about this time last year? What was I thankful for? And it just is the rewiring, the neuroscience, the neuroplasticity that you talk so much about. Those are the tactics that we can start to do on the rewire. So that's the impetus for gratitude right now. Hopefully, if you're hearing this real time, it'll be right actually on Thanksgiving Day. So we have a lot that we can think about practicing. All kinds of ways to practice gratitude on Thanksgiving Day. You never know what's going on that day. You don't know.
But I think, so let's just recap. So timing.
Yes.
Most powerful morning and evening.
Morning and evening. And if you have to choose one, evening. Like put a little timer on your phone to be like, gratitude practice, evening.
Put a little post-it next to your bed.
Yeah. Good idea.
First thing you see.
Yes, because your phone's not going to be by your bed, right? Because you taught us that it's going to be there. It's going to come up in more sleep episodes.
So morning or evening can be used as a get out of jail free card if you're finding yourself
middle of the day
during the day.
Yeah.
Okay. Styles. So we have conscious, just
in your head. The how-tos, in your head, written, physically written, which is some of that physicality too, but even it's like double down on it. It's the physical thing of writing and the etching in your brain when you physically write.
And then the adding a physical sensation to them. So clench fists, lean your feet on the ground, whatever you need.
Palms together. You could do this. A lot of people do this for kind of the heat feels good as well.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Because you're so well versed in this area. So what about people who are maybe more auditory and kind of need a little guide to get started? Do you recommend, are there any resources that you've come across that you relate with?
There are great gratitude apps. I think, interestingly, all the meditation apps that are out there, Calm, Headspace, Insight Timer, they all have a quick way to filter on gratitude because it's connected to the whole mindset piece of work. So any of those apps that somebody might be using for meditation or any kind of other mindset work will have a gratitude lane in it, as does, audiobooks has a gazillion free downloads, and they have a whole category section on gratitude.
Fantastic. And I think that's a really cool point. For some of us, myself included in this, meditation is hard to access.
Yes.
It's not, it's really challenging for me. And so gratitude can kind of be a really gentle introduction to that. And you can kind of test some different practices and what starts to resonate with you. And so sometimes approaching, instead of trying to dive in and meditate, if that's not in your life.
If that's not your wheelhouse for it.
Life. Sometimes these gratitude practices can help really gently introduce it, and you can find things that really resonate with you and that are really helpful.
Yes. And, as you describe that, especially if you're working with somebody who maybe meditation's not a path, or sometimes working with kids, you've heard the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, which is about calming yourself down, right? 5 things I see, 4 things I hear, 3 things I smell, and then taste and feel or the others. So it's around your 5 senses. You can do the same thing in the context of gratitude. 5 things I see that I'm thankful for, 4 things I hear that I'm thankful for, 3 things I smell, or 2 things I feel, 1 thing I taste. And it doesn't have to be in that instant. You don't have to see 5 things you're thankful for, but it can help somebody access a memory or in a structured concept that they can then listen to as well.
I love it. So where else should we look for information on this?
Yes, because I think there's so many great experts out here.
They're really,
especially if you get excited to do your own research, or, you want to present some of this to your friends and family you're gathering with on Friendsgiving or Thanksgiving. The Greater Good Science Center is fantastic. And they have a whole body of work around positivity and mindset and around gratitude, and how it's been tied not only to happiness and health, but specifically like healing cancer. I mean, like really hardcore medical challenges.
That's at the University of
Berkeley. It's Berkeley. Yeah. It's out in Oakland. So that's a really cool one. I think we've mentioned before Barbara Fredrickson and her work, as well as Marty Seligman and Fredrickson, and a ton of the thought leaders at Penn and positive psychology, applied positive psychology.
Yep.
And then Sue,
a Reverend Sue, who started an organization. She's no longer there, but it's called the Sacred Design Lab, that really brings some of these thoughts into the mainstream. So at Sacred Design Lab, they've done work with Google and IDEO and all of these really big corporations to expand the idea about what some of these practices can look like.
Yeah.
And then the last place that I think is really interesting to go for information is the Human Flourishing Project. It's at Harvard.
Yes.
Which is Dr. Vanderwall's work. And, it's just amazing, I think, again, to take some of these practices that maybe seem a little off the beaten path and how they amplify productivity, efficiency.
Yes.
You talked about the financial bottom line, how they, in my world with healthcare, and how they promote healing and things and recovery and all of these things that are so powerful and very scientifically connected to just these very simple things that we can do.
Yes.
That's risk-free. It's not really free.
It
doesn't even really take a lot of time.
Yep. So it's practicing it daily.
Yep.
Take a time of day that works for you. Play around with a tactic that works. And if you do it at all, it's net positive. And
right.
So the more we can do, the better.
So before we sign off, the character test that you alluded to at the beginning of the episode, can we kind of monitor our gratitude practice? Should we see some feedback and a metric that if people really say, I really want to see what this is doing? I mean, I would say from my lens, I'm like, check your blood pressure.
Yeah.
Is it making a physical difference?
Yes.
But I know you were so deep in some of these other metrics. Like, is there a way to monitor saying, I'm actually making?
Yeah, I think that's such a great thing to be thinking about, because they're kind of on two fronts. One is, if you want to track, am I doing more gratitude? Like, what does that mean? Like, then that's an app, right? Or that's a spreadsheet, or that's a checklist on your whiteboard where you're just like, or a reminder on your phone, I'm doing it more. And then, but if you want to track, and so what? Like, what's the impact of doing that, right? Because there's a lot of ways that it could show up. It should show up in your medical history right there, right? But also can show up in something like the happiness score that we talked about in Dr. Amen's test. Dr. Fredrickson and also the Positive Psychology Institute have little happiness quizzes you can do online. Mm-hmm. So we can link to those in the show notes, where you just pick one and just keep tracking it and say, do I feel like this is showing up for me on the metric of happiness? Mm-hmm. Now, maybe you wanted to show up for you in a different metric. Maybe you wanted to show up for you in your relationship with your kids or your relationship with a coworker. So that's on offer for you to decide, where is it important for me for the why, and then kind of metric it against that. The test that we were talking about, the VIA character strengths test, interestingly, those are supposed to be, kind of core traits. Like, there's 26. However, they do shift. And so some people have found when they do that character test, if for some reason they want to move the gratitude needle, then you can try to do these gratitude practices, and it might have moved from 10th place to 5th place.
Interesting.
So it would show up there. If you decided you're going to work on a core trait, a character strength, you can. And now all these 26 strengths, by the way, or traits are strengths. Like, there's no bad thing that shows up there. So if you just want to play with that tool and say, I want to work on my humor, so you can. So it would show up there too.
I love that idea. And even like making a list of a few questions that are important to you, like to my kids, like, do I seem calmer? Do I, and like asking them one day and then going away and doing your work and asking them again. And they don't need to know what you went away and did. But it would be interesting to kind of get that feedback and those results. I also think to go back to your written.
Yes.
And I think anytime I've tried to journal, shockingly, I'm not a good journaler.
You are good with so many things. You don't have to do the journaling or the meditation.
I do think it's interesting. The more you do it, the easier it becomes and the deeper you can go. So I even think, looking back,
Yeah.
If you leave a little gratitude note that maybe it's
Yeah.
really simple at first, and then maybe you can tap into some things that are deeper that
Yeah.
maybe you really need to discover after you get through those first few more, I don't want to say superficial and it is not important, but
Yeah. Level 1 or yeah.
lighter areas,
Yeah.
you get a little bit deeper into some things that you can truly
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And there are a gazillion little gratitude books too, which if you want to write it and go back and reflect, it is fun. I do like to journal. And even somebody who likes to journal, I have a hard time doing it. So, but it is fun when I go back and look 5 years ago, what were we thankful for? And if nothing else, it's good for a very good belly laugh at dinner. Like, really? You were thankful for that? Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Awesome.
Well, thank you for sharing all your knowledge in this space, because this is amazing. And I think, we love to give tidbits that you can do anytime,
Yeah.
any place, that really help reset you now, reset you for the future, and that are important practices that you can share. Like, not everyone is going to have your depth of knowledge here, but you just get started, and and you can learn, go deeper and deeper.
Yes, but I love how you're tying it into sleep and brain health, because I think those are things that everybody wants to be amplifying, especially in the back half. So,
well, I think we tie it to everything.
Yes.
It's like we're thankful for this healthy food in front of us, and then I love your connection to bringing out the neuroplasticity. When I feel thankful because I put healthy things in my body, I feel better. When I'm grateful that I slept good, I feel better. When I'm grateful I get an opportunity to go move with a friend, like all of these things, it's so intertwined.
Yes.
So thank you.
So thank y'all for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us here today. If you liked what you heard and you got some tips on how to live better right now and for the long haul, please help us reach more midlife women. Please share and rate and like this show, and we can't wait to continue the dialogue with you on our next episode. Until then, thank you. It's time.